Hello, I'm State Representative Rick Perales from the 73rd House District. Welcome to Ohio in Focus.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Ohio in Focus, a program that brings state government to you. I'm Brad Miller, and I'm pleased to be joined today by State Representative Rick Perales, who serves the 73rd House District, which includes the western portion of Greene County. Representative, good to have you back on the program.
Brad, it's great to be back. It's been a while.
We're going to cover a topic that's very near and dear to your heart, aviation, and it makes sense that that would be such a major priority for you since joining the legislature, because you represent a district that includes Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and we're a commander in the U.S. Air Force yourself. Before we get into some of the things that are happening here at the State House and some of the legislation that you've been involved with, how about you share with us some background, some of the history and the impact that aviation has had on Ohio's economy and our defense?
Well, clearly, I mean, the history of aviation in Ohio goes back to the Wright brothers. Flight was invented here and just outside of my district at Patterson Field at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Since then we've had all kinds of pioneers in aviation aerospace, John Glenn and Alan Shepard, to name a couple. The heritage, the foundation of aviation is just second to none in the state of Ohio. And the economy through places like Glenn Research Center and Wright-Patterson and all of our fine higher schools of higher education, the industry, it's just the economy is in the top 3 or 4 in the state of Ohio in aviation aerospace. The point is, though, it can be a lot better, and that's what we're looking for.
And that's what you've been working on since joining the legislature in 2013. So you're now in your second term, and the effort continues, obviously. Recently, the House passed House Concurrent Resolution 8, which you sponsored. The issue behind this was kind of odd. The state of Connecticut had questioned or had come out and given some opposition to the idea that the Wright brothers were in fact responsible for for man's first flight. Can you kind of give us some of the background of that and what brought about this resolution?
Yeah, I'd love to, Brad. Some people find this humorous, and I guess it is a little bit, but it goes to the core of what we are in Ohio, and the Wright brothers are important to us in the invention of flight. And as an aside, it was the first time that North Carolina and Ohio have ever been together in anything dealing with flight, as we both refuted Connecticut's claim. But every so often, for decades, Connecticut would come up and say that their native son, Gustav Whitehead, was first in flight, beating the Wright brothers by a good year. All they had for evidence was really a blurry picture that no one could make sense out of. Several years ago, an editor from Jane Aircraft magazine, a well-respected magazine, gave more credibility to maybe this was the case. Maybe he was first in flight, and so it got a new life. So much so that the Connecticut General Assembly changed their state law to honor. They crossed out the Wright brothers and put in Gustav Whitehead as first in flight. At that point in time, as I said, we got together with North Carolina, and we had a press conference about a year and a half ago to make sure that we refuted that and made sure to make it clear that the Wright brothers, by all legitimate historian accounts, were the first in flight. And as a matter of fact, from the Smithsonian on down to any credible aviation historian, they have supported the Wright brothers all the way through. And as a side note, the publisher of Jane came back later and said that that was the editor's personal opinion and kind of backed off that. And so it has quieted a little bit. But I think it's important to go ahead and finish with this House concurrent resolution and get it on the records. North Carolina did this many years ago, so we need to get it on the books and make it clear that the Wright brothers and the Ohio native sons were, in fact, the first in flight.
You touched on this. I think it's very interesting. the idea that Ohio and North Carolina have sort of been at odds, or it's kind of been the birthplace of aviation versus the first in flight, that kind of thing. So I think it's kind of interesting that this has kind of unified. Can you kind of talk about that?
It was the strangest thing because we had a press conference at a hangar in excuse me, Centerville, Ohio, where they actually house the Wright B Flyers, and we got Senator Bill Cook from North Carolina. He's the senator that Kill Devil Hills is in his district. That's where the Wright brothers actually flew, and we both. A lot of press there, and we both made it clear that the Wright brothers they invented flight in Dayton, Ohio, and they flew the first time in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. And he was a fine Southern gentleman. We had a little fun. We had people call in, including some folks from Connecticut, who surprisingly enough supported the Wright brothers.
So something that apparently 47 other states really have not given much thought or have not refuted that claim as far as the Wright brothers being the first in flight. So something that a lot of people probably were not aware of, that this debate was even taking place. Talking about the resolution itself, what's the status of that currently, and where's it going from here? Where's this issue going?
Yeah, actually, Brad, the New York press, there were a lot of magazines that picked up on this from all over the country. So I think it was entertaining, and it took something that everyone took as a given in the foundation of aviation, and they started rethinking it, so we had to put it back in the given slot. But yeah, this concurrent resolution was passed out of the House unanimously, and it's currently sitting at the Senate, and I have no doubt that it'll get out unanimously as soon as we get back in the fall.
You were appointed chairman of the Ohio Aerospace and Aviation Technology Committee. So we're going to kind of switch gears and talk about that. Can you first give us some background of that committee, your role as chairman, and what you hope to accomplish with that committee?
Well, yes, I'd be happy to. You know, I'm honored that the Speaker thought enough of me to appoint me the chairperson. When you come to a job like this, you got to really figure out where your strengths are, where your sweet spot is, and of course mine is aviation and technology as an engineer. And one thing I noticed is that we just really didn't have a strong suit for aviation and aerospace, even though that was such a big driver in our economy and we had so many resources. So I had support, of course, from the governor's office and the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House to get this thing going, and it took a while. But what this committee is 6 legislators, 3 from the House, 3 from the Senate, and 15 what I call civilians from academia, military, and industry. And it's kind of a bottom-up approach. These folks are trying to figure out what we need to do in Ohio to make it more conducive to more aviation aerospace opportunities. Again, as I said earlier, just from Airbus and Boeing, you know, we're making about $14 billion in logistics a year, but we can do so much better. And as a matter of fact, I was in D.C. last week meeting with the Airbus folks, and they told us that we slipped to number 2 behind Connecticut. So that we got our work cut out for us. But these folks are going to figure out strategies that we can buy into as a state, and that's where we've been weak in the past. Places like Alabama, that's very strong in their aviation and aerospace, they're in sync. They have one strategy and they work towards that end. We haven't done that so much here, and we're going to do that.
Would you say one of the first ways of doing that, or one of the initial goals of the committee is, and your district is a perfect example of this, of how kind of military and industry legislation all fits together, kind of bringing all of those people under one roof and have that conversation? Is that something that really was lacking before?
No question, absolutely. So we had the problem with, you know, Northern Ohio doing their thing and Southern, Southwestern, everyone doing their own thing for one. But exactly what you said, academia was strong here and doing something, industry was here, military was here. We're pulling them all together to figure out, you know, we can't be strong in everything associated with aerospace and aviation. So we have to pick and choose where and how, and this group is doing it. And we've established focus groups so that we can do it in a more efficient and effective manner.
So you recently, your committee recently issued the chairman's report. You're the chairman. It's your report. What are some of the initial recommendations of this first report that you think could improve Ohio's standing in this industry?
I have to qualify it because we just made the appointments at the very end of the year. Our first meeting wasn't until February, and we're pulling people from all over the state that don't know each other. So a key component of what has happened is we developed 5 focus groups. And, the focus groups are outreach and branding. So we need to start telling people just how strong we are in aerospace and our resources. We're not good at that. Go to the air shows. We need to do more of that. Workforce development. If we don't have the proper workforce, we're not going to get the opportunities. And that starts when kids are in kindergarten all the way up. We talk a lot about STEM. That's right down the sweet spot. Technology development. Again, I said before, we can't be strong in everything. Is it composite jet engines? We need to figure out, is it UAVs? We need to figure out where our strengths is, where we really have strength, and where we can compete at a national and international level. Industry support, that's where the legislators come in. The 15 civilians tell us what they need and how it's worked in other states, and we see if we want to keep our folks on at least an even plane with any other state out there, if not even give them the upper hand. And insulation support, and that's any installation, be it government, military, civilian, just making sure that they have the support from the state of Ohio they need to keep prospering and attract other businesses. So we started with that. Now the recommendations, we're doing some work on the website again, communication is key. It may seem basic, it may seem simple, but there's so much going on in aviation and aerospace that other people don't know about. So communicating is one big part. We've got a couple pieces of legislation that we're looking into that other states have done that if it fits Ohio properly, I'll go ahead and get either myself or other members on the committee to carry that and move forward. So we're at the early stages. We got the first report out, but all those focus areas are meeting over the next 2 months, and in fall we'll be ready to hit the ground running and rock and roll.
We'd hope to have you back on the show and discuss those pieces of legislation in the future. Unfortunately, the show moves pretty quickly, so we have a couple minutes left. We usually end the program with you sharing with your constituents back in the 73rd District how they can reach you with their ideas and concerns.
Absolutely, very important. And with the Aerospace and Aviation Committee, actually it's the whole state of Ohio, but I'd be happy to get any input from anybody in the state of Ohio, especially my district. My phone number is 614-644-6020, and you can reach me on internet by rep73@ohiohouse.gov.
And that information is also at the bottom of the screen. Representative, we really appreciate your insights today. Thanks for sitting down with us.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you again on the next edition of Ohio in Focus, a program that brings state government to you. Thanks for watching.